realfaith.org.au. realfaith.org.au.
I nursed in the outback in Bourke, and during the floods in 1990, the matron of the hospital asked me to go and work in a remote community called Angonia. And we had a clinic there, but she thought it'd get cut off by the floodwaters, and she'd asked all the other RNs and they'd all said no. And she asked me and I said, well, can I take my dog? And she said, you can take whatever you like, but just will you go up there for 3 weeks? And I said, sure.
Welcome to Real Faith, conversations about the impact faith has on our lives and the challenges we go through, helping us today and giving us hope for tomorrow. That's real people, real life and real faith with Eric Scatterbo.
When Lisa Mellor reflects back over her life, she usually marks the different phases by what motorcycle she was riding at that time. You see, riding a motorcycle has played a central part in the many twists and turns in her life journey. And she even became the first female national coordinator of Australia's Christian Motorcyclists Association. So how did the road of her life take her from the remote outback of Australia to Nigeria and Thailand and other places? We'll find out as she shares her adventurous story with us today. Lisa Mellor, welcome to the program.
G'day, Eric. Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you with us, and I am so excited to hear all these many adventures you had. And your nickname was Gypsy. Is that right?
Yeah, in some of the bike scene it is, just because I've travelled so much. I've been a single person, and I've up till recently, and I've travelled all over Australia and all over the world, yeah.
And also, as we just heard in the introduction, you were the first female coordinator of Australia's Christian Motorcyclists Association.
Yeah, that's a story in itself. But yeah, I was the only female leader in the world too, which caused
the whole world.
Yeah, of that association. So it was it caused a bit of a stir in some ways when I went to my first international leaders meeting.
Well, let's just be frank about it. You're a bit of a tomboy, is that right?
Oh yeah, I grew up being a tomboy.
And has there been some challenges with that over the course of your life?
Oh yeah, there always is in becoming a Christian and then and struggling with that. You know, am I feminine enough? Am I the right sort of Christian? You know, especially through your teenage years, you just struggle with your identity, and that's all part of it.
But as we're going to hear, the Lord has used you in many wonderful ways.
Yeah, you learn that your uniqueness is from God, and that's
Amen.
Who you are. He made you, so
Amen.
He's used me in very different situations that a lot of women wouldn't be in. And
your unique skills as somebody proficient at riding a motorcycle have come in handy over the years.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We'll hear about that as well. So excited to hear about all the many twists and turns and adventures you've been on. But let's start at the very beginning. Where were you born and raised?
I was actually born in Sydney, in Parramatta. Mm-hmm. But in those days, that was very much the edge of Sydney, not the centre as it is now. But at 4 years of age, we moved to the country. My dad was a bank manager, and we moved every few years. So we were in country towns for quite a while.
Did you enjoy your home life?
Yes, I definitely did, and I definitely enjoyed the country and didn't want to come back to the city. I loved the country towns, but it was difficult for our family because my three older siblings had to go away to boarding school, and that was pretty tough on them and pretty tough on my parents financially.
So you eventually came back to the city?
Yes, yeah.
And you eventually became a Christian?
Yeah, one of the consequences of coming back to the city was my dad could no longer get school holidays, and so God's hand was in it, obviously. When Mum was a nurse, and somebody at the hospital handed her a brochure on Camp Howard, Anglican youth camps, and I went with a friend off to an adventurous camp that had abseiling and canoeing.
Oh, yeah.
The things that, drew me in.
As a tomboy, that sounds right up your alley.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I went with a friend from school, and a wonderful evangelist was there and spoke to us, and I just gave my heart to the Lord and didn't really know the consequences, I guess, but just knew that I'd made that step and went back and told my Sunday school teacher, and then things went from there.
Then what happened next?
I was in a very good youth group through those teenage years. It was during the 70s, the Charismatic Revival, and it was a very on-fire youth group, and that, I don't know, it just cemented my love of God, and I had a passion. I felt like that I wanted to do overseas mission work.
So way back then,
Yeah.
the seed was planted in your heart to be a missionary.
Yes, it just, I guess it had more appeal because it was more adventurous.
Which is right up your alley as far as what you're interested
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
Adventurous.
I think that's what it was. I think it was the adventure that drew me.
Yeah, yeah. So at this point, it's all sounding very good. I mean,
Yeah.
become a Christian, you're doing what you want, your heart's desire is to travel, be a missionary.
Yes.
But then what happened?
I think that part of the issue for those years and for a lot of people was that there was a lot of really strong feeling and emotion in that charismatic movement. But unlike now, there wasn't the grounding in the word so much, and your faith needs to be based on the grounded in the word, or you just got no stability. You're not on the rock.
Right. So when the storms of life come, emotions can only take you so far, especially when the emotions have gone away.
Yes. So when I was away from that group and went off to uni and everything, that sort of all fell away, and I started to question even if there was a God. I looked at other religions. I looked at, I just played sport. I loved playing sport. Got into the state soccer team. It was, that was my passions. I just threw myself into all that sort of stuff, and even got as far as going into dabbling in the occult, which was pretty scary.
Yes, tell us that story.
Oh, well, just somebody said for a bit of fun, let's go down to one of the other residential colleges, and went down, and we were a couple of girls and we were hanging out with some boys, and they got out a Ouija board and we all put our fingers on the glass, the story and the glass is going round, and they ask who is it, and it spells out a name. Well, it spelled out, went to the number 10, and everybody's going, oh, that's nothing, and then it went to Boom. And I'd been reading a book by Corrie Ten Boom, of course, and I knew I hadn't pushed the glass.
Yeah.
So I was very freaked out by that because I knew none of them were Christians or had any connection, knew nothing about Corrie Ten Boom. And I knew, of course, it wasn't Corrie Ten Boom, but I thought this is just cemented the fact that the spiritual world is so real. And I ran away from that,
So that jolted you.
Oh, absolutely.
So you knew there was something supernatural going on, but not a good supernatural from God, but
for sure.
a dark supernatural.
Sort of, I don't know whether it cemented in my brain, but I knew that I'd gone a long way from God.
Okay. Then also, at the same time in your life, speaking of your passions, your first motorcycle. It's where it all started.
Yeah, I got a little trail bike, an XL 185, as a cheap means of transport because I didn't have a car and I could get it cheaply. In those days, of course, the usual thing was to get your licence, you went to the local cop shop. I borrowed my friend's 50cc, rode it round the block, was given my licence, went to Sydney, bought my bike and rode it the 600 k's back to Armidale.
So this was more than just a means of transportation. This started a lifelong love for the motorcycle.
Yeah, I did.
What is it about the motorcycle that you love
I
it so
don't know.
much?
To start with, it was really just a convenient thing. But, of course, not the average girl in those days went and bought a bike for convenience. But then it just became part of who I was, and I couldn't let it go. I just loved it. I just loved the freedom.
I was going to ask you, what did you love so much about it? The freedom?
Yeah, just the freedom and the challenge. I don't know, all the things that part of adventure, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how the love affair with the motorcycle began. Then what happened next in your life?
Well, funnily enough, I'd gone to uni to be a teacher, but I did one prac and decided there's no way I could do it.
No, it wasn't for you?
No, it wasn't for me. And I loved my uni life. In those days, I guess uni, especially everybody at Armidale was away from home. It was a very free, fun sort of existence. And then I decided, no, I was going to be a nurse. So I went back to Sydney and I started my nursing training and spent 3 years doing that. And eventually, during that time, I just came back to God. It was just a very simple, nothing dramatic. I went to a barbecue with a friend and there was a big Anglican church next door and I simply walked out of the barbecue, didn't tell anybody.
Is that right?
And walked into the church. And
what drew you?
I don't know. It was God, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ultimately.
Yeah, but I just, it was time, I think. And I just had come to the conclusion, basically, after trying everything, that Jesus had to be the right way, the only way.
Yeah.
And I just walked out of that barbecue back into that church, and nobody spoke to me. But it was very formal. It was like a high church, and they had a sort of an altar call, just people filing down and the priest sort of blessing them. So it was very out of my realm as far as churches went as well. But I just went forward. He prayed for me, and I walked out, and that was it. I just recommitted. He said, "What did you want?" And I said, "I want to recommit my life." I think he had no idea. He just prayed that, and I walked out of that church and never saw anybody from there again. But that was the moment I gave my life back, recommitted my life. Yeah.
And that revived an interest in missions for you?
Yes. I don't know whether it came immediately, but because I was still, I don't know. Satan had a hold of me in lots of ways because I'd been in such a low place, and there are things that had hold of me, and I struggled. I've struggled on and off with that all through that period, and eventually I got myself back on track, I guess, or God got me back on track. Yeah.
Our guest today is Lisa Mellor, who, as we've been hearing, has had a lifelong love for riding motorcycles. We'll find out where the road of life has taken her as she shares more of her story when we return right here on Real Faith.
The word for today is Australia's most widely read daily devotional, designed to give you practical teaching to keep you focused on your relationship with Jesus. Read it online or subscribe to the free printed edition at thewordfortoday.com.au.
You're listening to Real Faith, conversations with real people about how God works in their lives. If you want to know more about integrating faith into your life, our website is realfaith.org.au. Just go to the website and you'll find helpful articles about the impact faith can have on your life. Once again, that's realfaith.org.au.
Welcome back. I'm Eric Scatabo, and today I'm chatting with Lisa Mellor, who's sharing her life journey with us. And as we've been hearing, Lisa has a lifelong love for riding motorcycles, a skill that has come in handy for her at different times in her life. Now here's more of Lisa sharing where the road of life has taken her as we continue our chat in our Melbourne studios. And then eventually Bible school?
Yeah, well, when I did eventually say, yep, I do want to, I started going to a church with one of my nursing friends, and I decided, the missions thing came back. It really was. I thought, I'm going to be a missionary. And so I went and spoke to the minister of the church, and he said, well, you better go to Bible college. And I said, okay. And that's sort of the way I work. I'm not one of these people that deliberates on, if I think, okay, that's what I should do, that's what I should do. So I said,
just like that.
Yeah. So I said, where should I go? And he said, this one. And so I rang up and got an interview with the principal and started the next year.
I was going to ask you, while you were there and you had your tomboy-like interests, what did the leader of the school say to you? Well,
interestingly enough, my first year at that Bible college was his first year as principal, and I think I was a bit of a stretch for him.
In what way?
Well, he had girls, but they were all lovely, sweet, feminine girls. Yeah. And I think he hadn't come across anybody like me, maybe.
So what were you like? What was his challenge?
I rode a motorbike for one thing.
Well, yeah, that would be different.
And I played soccer. Yeah. And
rough and tumble.
Yeah, and I climbed up into the second story of people's windows and crazy. And I start in our duties. We'd have duties week where we'd all do things to keep the Bible college together physically, like maintenance and stuff. And I'd initiate things like porridge fights with the boys and all sorts of things that would not go down so well with the principal. And he basically told me to give up motorcycling, give up soccer, be more feminine. And I sort of looked at him strangely and thought, I can't do that. That's not me.
Yeah. Interesting. Somehow he thought that was the best thing for you to do.
Yeah.
He couldn't be more wrong, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, it was his, in defence of him, it was his first year.
Yeah.
And I think I was the first big stretch for him.
Yeah. Well, as we learn, God uses all kinds of different people. And so these things which he thought were negative, as we'll hear in your story, turn out to be uniquely advantageous for you and how you helped other people along the way. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. What happened next in your life?
Well, being at Bible college was life-changing for me.
How so?
Well, I really didn't have a grasp of the whole Bible, the Old Testament, New Testament, the Old Testament being such an important part of the New Testament, as in, the themes of prophet, priest and king, of the pointing to Jesus, everything, all that sort of stuff. I just found it so amazing, not just in my head but in my heart. I can remember doing an assignment on Knowing God by Packer and crying the whole way through while I'm writing this assignment, because it was impacting my heart, not just my head.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it was really life-changing for me. It was a very intensive 2 years for me, but it was so important.
So that grounded you in God's Word, set a good foundation for future ministry work?
It was the beginning. I've discovered that much more recently that I need to be studying it a lot more. But yes, it was the beginning of getting a good grounding in His Word, yeah.
And another way to remember this new phase in your life is your second motorcycle?
Well, it came a little bit later. I decided I had to get myself grounded a bit more in my nursing as well if I was going to go back overseas. So I nursed in the Outback in Bourke, and that was pretty exciting. I had some really interesting times there just in the hospital, but also got during the floods in 1990, the matron of the hospital asked me to go and work in a remote community called Angonia, which is up near the border. It was a very small town of 120 people, about 100 Kuris, those Indigenous people, and 20 white people. And we had a clinic there, but she thought it'd get cut off by the floodwaters, and she'd asked all the other RNs, and they'd all said no because they had husbands or families or something. And she asked me, and I said, well, can I take my dog? And she said, you can take whatever you like, but just will you go up there for 3 weeks? And I said, sure. So I had a really interesting time up there and treating the local people, making up a potion of stuff to stop them getting bitten because there was lots of mosquitoes around. And then the army chopper was based there, and there was somebody sick on a shearing team. And so he flew me out to one of these, a very remote station on this chopper, and it was so exciting to be up there flying over the floodwaters, getting out there to treat this woman that was sick on this shearing team, and then being flown back again. So I had lots of interesting experiences there. Yeah,
so that kind of began your adventurous nursing.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, based on your personality type of being more on the tough side, tomboy, that uniquely qualified you for, well, you had to be tough to do this kind of work in this remote areas.
I guess I just saw it as an adventure. But and I don't know that, and this is the same with all my nursing, I guess, in those remote areas. I never felt like I was necessarily a super confident nurse, but I've depended on God so many times for getting me through those situations.
And then your second motorcycle?
Yeah. It was a Guzzi V35, which was...
I have no idea what that is, but motorcycle people will know what you're talking about.
If you're Italian, you'd say Moto Guzzi. It's an Italian bike, and it's a 350cc bike, and it was an ex-police bike from WA. And it was a step up in that it was a road bike, and it was more comfortable, and I had my dog Vegemite, who used to sit on the tank and do thousands of kilometres with me on that bike. Yeah, all over Australia.
Never falling off or anything?
No, she was a Kelpie. She was very, very attuned to riding on a bike.
Your constant companion.
Oh, she was, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, man's best friend, and in this case, woman's.
Woman's best friend, yeah.
And then eventually you went overseas?
Yeah. Well, I got my training, and I did a bit more intensive stuff in Canberra, and then I did my midwifery because I thought if I'm going to work overseas as a nurse, I'm going to come into contact with MIDI and with
babies are going to be born. It's inevitable.
Yeah, and I better know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I thought I better go and do my midwifery first. So I did.
Very, very practical.
Yeah, so I did that first. And then I applied and I went with a group called Africa Evangelical Fellowship to Madagascar. And because they had a hospital there in a village, a very big village, but a mud hut village, but in the north. And the woman who was the major, the matron of that hospital, she was a Swiss missionary and she needed to go home for a furlough. So I went for 9 months and took her place. And they said, while you're here, we want you to get the operating theatre up and running. And I was I was like, I'm not an operating theatre nurse. I've only been in the operating theatre in my training. I have no concept. And then I had to calm down and think, oh, well.
Yeah, what'd you do?
I just thought, oh, well, I know aseptic technique. I know how to do that. And I said to the doctors, well, you just have to write down all the instruments because I don't know them. And you have to write down all the suture material for each operation. And they said, yeah, we can do that. So I trained girls basically off the street, from taking a temperature and a pulse and a blood pressure to right through to running the theatre.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I didn't want to be stuck in there.
But, I mean, the Lord was really stretching you.
Oh, absolutely stretching me, yeah. In fact, I said to them when I came, I said, look, I'm a reasonably experienced nurse, but I am not an experienced midwife. I'm fairly new. And they said, no, we're not going to do births. Famous last words. In my first week, in the middle of the night, the head doctor, the English missionary doctor, wakes us up and says, we've got somebody come in labour. And I said, oh, okay. So normally, in those countries, most developing countries, people don't come for birth unless there's a problem. And what they had wanted to do was, these young girls were getting pregnant when they weren't fully grown, so they had told them they need to come back for a cesarean. This girl was one of them. She came back in labour.
Oh, wow. So
we're in the four-wheel drive, bumping our way across the roads to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And they're talking in Malagasy. And then the doctor says to me, oh, and I said, what? And he says, oh, there's a foot out. And I'm thinking, oh, no. I said, I haven't even seen a breech, let alone delivered one. And a foot, what we call a footling breech, can be potentially the most dangerous. So I'm getting a bit nervous about this, and we get to the hospital and one of the local girls is running around. We're trying to set up the theatre to do a cesarean, and then they call out to me and say, oh, there's a second foot, and I just say, thank you, God, because that's
good.
That's good.
That's so you can pull it too.
Well, if only one foot comes and one gets stuck, then the baby potentially completely stuck and can die, and the mother can die. It's can be a terrible situation in that sort of country. Anyway, the baby did start to come, and then it got stuck at the head, not where it's meant to, but with the whole head. And I figured maybe she's not fully dilated. And anyway, and the doctor turns to me and says, "So what do we do now?" And I said,
"Turns to you."
Yeah, because they haven't had this before. It's amazing timing.
Yeah.
And I said, "We pray." Because I've never seen it before. I'm just running in my head going what I've learnt in my head, but never seen mechanism for breach.
Yeah.
Anyway, then it came down to a point where I could do a manoeuvre that they call a smelly beat manoeuvre and lift the baby out. And I just thank God, because I knew it was his intervention, not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it all worked out all right?
Worked out, yeah.
Wow.
Thanks God.
Yeah, amen. Well, that was part one of my chat with Lisa Mellor, who is sharing her life journey with us. And as we've been hearing, a common thread throughout her life has been her love for riding motorcycles. Next time, we'll even hear how she goes on to be the first female national coordinator of Australia's Christian Motorcyclists Association. I think one of the things I love the most about her story is how it shows that God can use a wide variety of unique gifts and skills to do his work. Lisa may have felt a bit awkward in her teenage years about being a tomboy and doing things more commonly associated with men, but God told her, "This is exactly how I made you." So it was great to hear how Lisa has been using her unique gifts to do ministry work around the world. Next time, we'll hear part 2 of my chat with Lisa, and we'll hear more of the adventures she's gone on serving the Lord in various places in the world. That's all coming up next time. Until then, I'm Eric Scadabo. So long, and God bless.
You've been listening to Real Faith, and if you have any questions or comments, you can send us a message through our website, realfaith.org.au. That's realfaith.org.au.
Real Faith is a production of Vision Christian Media.
This program is a production of Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, see vision.org.au. This program is a production of Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, see vision.org.au.